Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a great short magnum that failed. We're going to talk about the 7mm Winchester Short Magnum. I'm going to talk the history, the ballistics, and why it failed. Let's be honest here. When talking about the Winchester Short Magnum family, there's only really been one that has been a major success, and that's this guy here, the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. Now there's also the 270 WSM. I talked about that almost a month ago. That I would consider kind of a niche cartridge that has had some success, but overall not great. Then there's also the really dead cartridge, the 325 WSM, which is an 8mm cartridge. I guess you could thank Nazi Germany for the 8mm cartridge never being popular. That brings us to the 7mm WSM. This cartridge was introduced in 2001, shortly after the 300 WSM, and the parent case is the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. Now, all of the WSM cases are extremely similar. So they're going to have the same case head, the same dimension at the bottom of the case. However, there is one difference between the 7 WSM and the 270 WSM. So Winchester was afraid that people were going to accidentally load 270 WSM into their 7 WSM. And so the case length to the shoulder is a little bit longer on the 7mm WSM than it is on the 270 WSM, so you don't have any kind of accidents with that. So what kind of performance are you getting with the 7mm WSM? Let's just take a look. Let's first look at a 140 grain bullet. Let me show you, lift this up. Almost 3,300 feet per second with a 140 grain. With the 150 grain, mid 3,100 feet per second. And let's just go up to the 160 grain. That's the one we're going to use in today's video. With the 160 grain AccuBond, mid 3,000 feet per second. How does that compare to the 7mm Remington mag? Let me show you. Looking at the 7mm Rem mag load data with a 140 grain, you apparently can get a little over 3,300. With a 150 grain, apparently 3,200. And then a 160 grain, just about the same, mid 3,000 feet per second. So performance-wise, the 7 WSM is basically almost identical, with maybe a little bit more power you can get out of the Rem mag. But I don't know if there's that big of a difference between the two. So I just want to show you the ballistics downrange with the 7mm WSM with a 160 grain AccuBond with a pretty respectable BC of 0.531. Your muzzle velocity, I think you could comfortably get 3,050 feet per second, just like the 7mm Remington mag. And the energy out of the muzzle, very good, 3,300 foot-pounds of energy. Now the recoil, again, it's probably going to be around the same as the 7mm Rem mag. Makes sense. It's about the same power. Now let's take this out to about max hunting distances that I would feel comfortable with. There's about 400 yards. The bullet's still going almost 2,400 feet per second. Basically, it's at 2,000 foot-pounds of energy. It's also a pretty flat cartridge as well. Only 23.22 inches of drop. This is a very good do-it-all cartridge for hunting in North America. It should be a lot more popular than it is. It matches the 7mm Rem mag in a shorter action with a shorter barrel, but for whatever reason, it never took off. I think it's kind of a mystery on why some cartridges absolutely take off, like the 7mm Rem mag here, and why some just absolutely flop, like the 7mm Winchester Short Mag. I do have 3 guesses on why I think the 7mm Winchester Short Mag failed. Reason number 1, and this is probably my least confident explanation why the 7 WSM failed, I think it came out at the wrong time. It was introduced shortly after the 300 WSM in 2001, and this is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I think in the early 2000s, the only really popular 7mm at the time was this guy here, the 7mm Remington mag. Yes, the 7mm08 was around. I just don't think it was as popular as it is today. I think it's really catching on today, but it was a lot less popular in the early 2000s. So again, I think it just came out at the wrong time, just like the 7mm Weatherby came out at the wrong time, just like the 280 Remington came out wrong time. So if it was introduced in 2019, 2021, 2022, I think the 7 WSM would be a very popular choice. Reason 2 is that there is a popular belief that the WSM cartridges won't shoot heavier bullets as fast as its competition. So maybe like the 7mm Remington mag, or in the case of the 300 WSM, like the 300 Winchester mag. I think there's some truth to it, but I think it is a bit overblown. So let me just show you. With a 175 grain bullet in the 7 WSM, you can get a max velocity of right at mid 2950. So what does the 7 Rem mag do with a 175? Here we are with the 7 Rem mag with a 175, and look at that. It's basically almost identical with the 175. Now, one theory is, I mean, Nosler doesn't even offer 185 grain information for the 7 WSM, while it does for the Rem mag. So I think there's some truth to it. I don't think it's really the main reason why this cartridge never took off, though, but it is probably a somewhat valid point. My last explanation why this cartridge failed is that it didn't offer anything new. Technically it did, because it was offering 7mm Rem mag performance in a short action and a short Magnum, but I just don't think people really cared. So, it's not faster than the 7mm Rem mag. In fact, the Rem mag, at least according to Nosler, is a tad bit faster. And yes, this doesn't have a belt, and it is a short action, but what I found is that this cartridge, the WSM, it's more money to get. The rifles cost more money, and the ammo is a little bit more than what you get in the 7mm Remington mag. It really is too bad. I definitely think the 7mm WSM is a wonderful cartridge, and it has all those great attributes of being a short Magnum, a shorter barrel, and matching 7mm Remington Magnum performance, but for whatever reason, it just never took.